Dear IATA members and friends of IATA, welcome to the 16th Annual Nordic Security Conference. My name is Carl Mandelid and I'm the International Coordinator of IATA Norway. It is my great pleasure to start this year's conference by welcoming all of the speakers, attendees, and my fellow IATA members. First off, we have opening remarks from investigative journalist and author Øystein Windstad. He has worked in Egypt from 2011 until 2019 and has also reported from Russia and Chechnya. Windstad has worked for the Norwegian Broadcasting Corporation and has reported for Norwegian national newspapers such as Dagbladet. Øystein, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl, for the introduction. And first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here and to share some thoughts and to share stage with renowned scientists and researchers such as Sverre Lodgaard, and also to share stage with the Norwegian Minister of Defense and also Kate Hansen Bundt. It's inspiring. First off, I would like to, in my presentation talk, I will talk about Egypt in 2011 and from 2011 and also until now. And I will also share with you the best day of my life, which is also the worst day of my life. That was in Cairo in 2013, on the day I got married in Cairo. And that was the day, officially I'd say, that the Arab Spring in Egypt and in Cairo turned into a bloody winter. And towards the end, I will share with you what some of you might know. The previous president Donald Trump, being Donald Trump, what he called and named quite publicly the now president of Egypt at the G7 summit in 2019. We'll get there. So, 2011 is my first trip to Egypt and my first trip to Cairo. I walk out of the hotel and I go down to this massive open square. And in this massive open square in the middle of the million city Cairo, in the metropolis, it's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people sitting, standing, dancing. It's women with hijab, it's women without hijab, it's children, it's men, it's adults, young, it's all types of different people gathered in this Tahrir square, which has become the symbol of the Arabic Spring. And I go down there I'm a journalist, and Mubarak had just resigned. So I go down there to talk to the people who had participated in the Arabic Spring, to hear their thoughts. Why are they there? What are they hoping for? And what is it that they have been experiencing? And I remember in particular, I met a young woman about my age, who worked as a journalist. And I started asking her, and your parents didn't want you to be here even, and yet you went here with the dangers it faced you to go here with the other people. You defy your parents, and why did you do all of this? And then she said, at this time, when Mubarak was the president, it was a military rule. Working as a journalist was almost like a joke, because I couldn't write what I thought, I couldn't say what I thought, I couldn't speak my mind. There was nothing I could do. My friends, I have friends with very, very good grades. They're engineers and they have top grades, very bright, shining young people, and they cannot get jobs. And she told me also she saw people who had just finished, young students who just finished high school with top grades. Very, very hardworking, smart young people. They could not get into the universities they wanted to and should be according to their grades, because kids or students with connected or rich parents, they got there instead. And they mentioned again, this journalist and many others at Tahrir Square, they mentioned again and again and again the corruption, the bakshish, the money that you have to pay under the table to get just about anything done. But she and the other, they were so hopeful back in 2011, and they knew that next year there will be an election. and they were so hopeful, for a new bright future for the country and a new turn. And 1 year passed, and many of you know that there were, in the initial round, you had 5 candidates that you can choose from, and then there was 2 candidates left. The 2 that got the most votes from the initial round of the presidential election, 2 were left. And the choice that the voters and the citizens had in the history, the first free election in the history of Egypt, that was an officer, a general from the Air Force with, I'd say, close ties with the previous Mubarak regime. Basically a continuation of the previous regime, which in all honesty, it must be said that quite a few people supported the old regime also. And many saw them as a stabilizing factor because they represented the armed forces. So you had the old regime basically in this hand, and in the other hand you had Mohammed Mursi from the Muslim Brotherhood. You know, there's a Islamistic movement that was also quite popular, especially in the rural areas. And the election came, and Mursi was elected. He won by 1% of the votes back in 2012. And he and his government, the Muslim Brotherhood, they governed the country for just about 1 year. Some liked them, some strongly disliked them, and in particular the armed forces, the old power holders, they did not like him at all. And now we move back forward in time to the summer of 2013, and as many of you remember, then in protest, or how to say, in protest of what Mursi was doing, at least claiming, this general Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, I think he was also the previous intelligence, head of the Egyptian intelligence, Egyptian army strongman. He took power with a military takeover or coup, whatever you want to call it. And as that happened, when the military regained their power, thousands upon people went back to Tahrir to protest. Not only Tahrir, many different places all over Cairo. And now we're back in August. It's the 14th of August 2013. I'm about to get married. I'm a bit nervous, as you are on your wedding day. My lovely wife, she's from Yemen. Her family came from Yemen to Cairo, and my family came from Norway, Oslo, to Cairo. We kind of met in the middle in order for us to get married. And on my wedding day, 7 o'clock approximately in the morning, I'm awakened by this large, like very strong sound. And I stumble, half awake, half asleep out of the bed, go to the hotel balcony, the hotel room, and I pull the curtains outside, pull the curtain aside, and I look out. I open the door and look out, and just above my head, there's a large military helicopter hovering with armed people with automatic weapons hanging out of the doors. And then I hear the shooting, and then I hear the screaming. Literally just hundreds of meters away. I can see it and I can hear it. The military is manifesting its return and the way they want to rule this country. It was a sit-down protest just outside the hotel, just next to the Cairo University, a square full of thousands of people who are protesting against the military takeover. And the army went in against the protesters with automatic rifles, armored cars, tanks, helicopters, whatever you can imagine. And it was mostly peaceful protesters. And that is a day I will never forget. I remember the screams, I remember the sounds, I remember the sights, even the smell of the army going in and doing what they did towards the protesters. And I guess that was the day when the Arabic Spring was crushed, as I said, into a bloody winter for Egypt. And after that, when Abdel Fattah el-Sisi had said, what worked before will not work again, you saw quite peaceful, mild oppositional voices from before that was tolerated under Mubarak even, they were put to jail. They put family members of the Muslim Brotherhood in jail. They had trials where members of the Muslim Brotherhood, by let's say 100 people of them, were on trial in the same time. The trial lasted for an hour and they got lifetime or worse. And that was basically the army coming back and taking over and say, we'll have no more of this. Now you will have stability and security and no more of this. Muslim Brotherhood. And we can fast forward now to 2019. I land back again in Cairo, and I'm curious how people see, how are they living now? How are their lives now? So I land in Cairo, I go out of the airport and I go into a taxi, and luckily the taxi driver is speaking a little bit English. So I ask him while we drive towards the city center how it's like, and I crack jokes, like, how is it with the new guys in the government now? And then he stops talking completely. His eyes goes back. You see his eyes in the mirror, in the rear view mirror, and his eyebrows are going down, and he's looking at me for what I feel for like forever. And the only thing he says, it's difficult. And then he doesn't want to talk anymore about any of that. He just mentioned, though, that the same year, 2019, that the Egyptian pound is no longer pegged, so it's inflation. He mentioned that the gasoline for the cab drivers and everyone else the gasoline prices are increasing a lot. The prices for cooking gas, I think, went from 30 Egyptian pounds for 25 liters of cooking gas, propane, to 130 in just that year. And in the same time, also the government had implemented or imposed VIT, tax on goods and services, 14%. All of this in just one short period of time. And in a democracy as we live in, we are kind of used to that. You can do those things, but through reform. It will not be accepted if you do it just within 1 year. And so people had much less money because of inflation, and the prices they were rising a lot. So it was tough financially and economically for the people living there back in 2019. And the view from our allies, the United States, on Sisi was, I guess, expressed in a way at the G7 summit, which I mentioned. Donald Trump was looking for Sisi. He likes Sisi, so he wants to meet him and tell him that. And he saw Sisi and went like this: "Where is my favorite dictator?" And Sisi became very quiet, according to the people who saw this, and he didn't like it. But Trump, he meant it well, because he sees him as a representative of something predictable, something stable, and something that he can work with. And I guess that is representative also of the previous presidents that might express themselves in a different way, I guess, but it's kind of, I think it speaks for the way they see it. So, and also, in order to understand the why the armed forces are so powerful in Egypt, is if you look at the economy, half of the money in circulation in Egypt are within the army economy. Half of it. They have also the money that the taxpayers are paying that goes to the armed forces is unknown, because they have basically secret budgets. You don't know how much or how the money is being spent, so they don't have to answer to basically anyone. And one in science of political science and economics, we know what that can lead to. So the army is back now. In the same time, the people who were there at Tahrir Square protesting, they have smartphones, they have access to social media, they know and remember still, the ones I talked to that dare to talk, they know how life was back then, and people are poorer now, or at least very, very difficult economical situation. And that leads me to the final story I would like to share with you tonight. Now we go back to 1798. Napoleon came to invade with his campaign to invade Egypt in 1798. And he was known for, he could turn just about anyone his way without firing one single bullet. He was looking for exact that thing when he came to Egypt, when he landed in the harbor of Alexandria, beautiful harbor, big one. And he landed there and was wanting to turn everything over in Egypt and make it go his way, like he was known for. So he goes disembarked out of his ship and he steps out of the harbor, according to the legend, folklore of this story. And the first thing he asked the people there is, what is the price of bread in Egypt? And with that, I would like to say thank you for inviting me here.